what's happening to our soul, what's happening to your soul, and are there influences trying to steal your soul?
My name is Joe Gibbs. I'm a cat dad, part of Antifa, and a podcaster. And with me is my co-host.
I'm Melanie Jacobs. I'm a cat mom. I might be a Satanist.
Whoa,
and I'm a
whoa.
hairstylist at times.
Whoa. This is a so-called Satanism, a true crime podcast.
I'm just kidding, I am, but
and I'm only allegedly Antifa. So
it's just a rumor I heard.
That intro, I was listening to a podcast for this case, and the beginning she said something like, "I'm so and so, dog mom, baker, and podcaster." And I was like, all right, I'm gonna take that. Joe Gibbs, cat dad, QAnon, Antifa, and true crime podcaster.
I'm into it.
Yeah. So welcome in. This is episode 7 long, drawn out episodes about nonsense that I'm sure you all skipped through 100 times.
I hope they didn't.
Yes. Did I just bring the
here.
vibe down? Like, oh my God.
Brought
Sorry.
my vibe down a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'll fix that. The thousands and thousands of listeners that listen to every single word I say and take it all as gospel, because I am the leader. I went like
the
a cult
gospel
vibe
of
there.
Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs a witness.
Don't take this the wrong way, but someday I might start a cult.
Okay.
You
Let me
know?
know.
Yeah, like, oh my God, speaking of that, holy shit. In our hometown area, there's a cult right now that's been around since like the 80s.
Is that thing you sent me?
Yes. And it's well, I guess it's not fair to straight up call it a cult, but it's a goddamn cult.
Sounds like a cult to me.
It's a religion that refers to themselves as the perfect church. And like nobody outside of this area is talking about it, and it's fucking horrendous. Like, but there's abuse allegations, there's like weird prophecies. Like, I dug through the website, I've been saving a bunch of stuff I saw. Like, the most fucked up thing I saw so far was the prophet, the creator, Rose something. The owner of the cult, the leader of the cult. Her name was Rose something, and it starts with an A. It's like Ahali or Alahi or something like that. It's Hawaiian. Ahuli, I don't know. Alui? I'm just gonna keep
Something
saying
like
random
that.
things, and it's gonna start sounding more racist as I go, because I'm just saying
No.
Hawaiian things wrong. But no, it's something that starts with an A and ends in an I believe. But this kid was born there, and they wanted to name him something. He has a picture of his birth certificate, and his middle name is crossed out, and it's replaced with Rosetta. So like they made him they made the father, the parents, change he made the parents change their son's middle name. like what the fuck?
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Rosetta?
So what's up?
To Rosetta, that they changed it to that.
His middle name's Rosetta right now on his birth certificate, and it's crossed out, and above it says Rose. I think it's Rosetta. It's definitely like a female sounding name, like Rosaline or something, or I think it's Rosetta. But yeah, and this guy was posting about like his, I'm not saying it's a girl name or whatever isn't making fun of him. It's kind of making fun of the not making fun of.
Just unfortunate.
It's fucked up. It's a really fucked up thing for a person to do in a power position. And there's like, it's typical cult things. You're not allowed to have your own personality, really. Like this girl said when she was becoming like of age where she started to express herself, they made her shave her head, like as punishment. Like the pastors there are allowed to beat the children. It's like, and they're like deep within the town of Oregon, like Oregon, Illinois.
Wow.
like one of the guys, like one of the main guys is on um like the community fucking board or some shit. Board of
For real?
directors. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Rick Ryland, his name is. Shout out, you piece of shit. Um but yeah, so then like the right, and so I'll do like a quick little back on some weird shit quick, but uh in a text message that got like leaked that he was saying to somebody, he was saying that this guy named Kale, I think it's spelled Kale, but it's, I believe, Hawaiian, so I believe it wouldn't just be Kale. I think it's Kale. But it might
Okay.
just be Kale. I don't know. But this guy he married the leader of this religion, Rose, whatever.
Mhm.
Ahuli, I think it is. God, I'm gonna keep digging myself in a hole, I feel like. But he married her, and she was way older than him. So she died, and he basically became the leader. Uh,
Hmm.
and in a message, he said she's no longer in the grave, and it's like, what the fuck do you mean? Like you dug her up, or like I think he's trying
What?
to say she's like, Jesus born again, but like she fucking thinks she's a
Uh,
goddamn prophet. Like she thinks that like God spoke to her and told her to do this, and like she was a fucking psychopath. So um I don't know, eventually I might dig into that a little bit. I don't know if this is the platform for that, but maybe bonus episode or something, or I might make
mhm.
a little video of it for myself. I don't know, but I might dig into that a little more in the future because it's absolute bizarro.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And plus, like calling yourself the perfect church is like
Mhm.
bizarre.
It's a
Like,
little conceited to
yeah,
me.
like, oh, this is so-called Satanism, the perfect podcast.
I
So
think it's perfect.
yeah, I mean, I am absolutely perfect at everything I do, but I'm just kidding.
I know you think that. It's fine.
I know I do, right?
I
It's
know
like
you weren't joking.
there's like it's weird being. We don't need to get into my therapy topics.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do you like that.
I was gonna be like, it's kind of weird, like hating yourself and loving yourself as much as I do.
Oh, I agree. I feel that.
It's like I'm the worst, but I'm also the fucking best. Like I don't know.
Yep. Nobody can
I don't know.
compete with me.
Yeah, exactly. But like also everybody can stomp in my fucking face.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, we don't need to get full on therapy
no.
right now.
No.
Why do you feel
I
this
don't
way?
think anyone has the time for that.
I definitely don't.
Mm-mm.
So
How's that drink?
this drink is terrible. I don't want to talk about it. So let's just hop into the story. Um, this is a sad story. The
Another sad
information,
one?
another sad one. They're all sad, but like
Well, I
I kind
mean,
of do this thing where I like to pick out the saddest parts of stories and like kind of like amplify them because I think we should feel sad.
yeah.
So June 25th, 1985, in Dallas, Texas.
Oh,
You been to Dallas yet?
no.
I've
We
I've,
drove through like the top of Texas, but that's about it.
I've been to Dallas.
How was it?
Um, Sucks.
Did you fit in?
I fit right in. The only cool, so I went to like all the main cities in Texas throughout my life
Mm-hmm.
so far, just like within 2 tours I did with bands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Austin is awesome. Have you Are you aware? Oh God, I bumped my table so hard right there. Are you aware of Austin at all?
No.
Austin is like the most like liberal spot in Texas. Like,
Oh, I didn't
yeah,
know.
it's actually it's sick. It's awesome. I'm a big fan of Austin. And what else? I went to Houston. Houston was just hot. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
even judge it because when I was there, it was like 100 degrees, and I was like, and humid, like Texas humid. Like,
Ew.
oh God, it was bad. Um, and I ended up being a little bitch, and instead of riding with the band back to Illinois, I flew.
Oh my God.
They had no air conditioning, and it was so hot. So I was like, I'm
You would
gonna
never
spend
make it out here.
$150.
You would never
Fucking,
make it out here, Joe.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'm fully like, I'm moving north.
I get it.
I fucking hate heat so much. I'm too big. I'm too big. I sweat. Anyway, so yeah, 1985, June 25th, Dallas, Texas. The manager of the Casa 3 apartments was walking through the alley near the apartments. First, I want to talk about the Casa 3 that is now known as the Virginia apartments. Or I think it's just Virginia. They got
The Virginia
the
apartments.
Virginia
in
apartments. I
Texas.
found a review on it, and I thought the review was
Okay.
interesting. It's 2 years ago by Jackie Garza. Okay. Normally I wouldn't say the name, but I think it might make a point here.
Okay.
She says, "Do not rent here. Rodents everywhere. The landlord is a Mexican who doesn't even understand English, who gets nothing done. Rat infested. No air conditioning or heat. Mold in every apartment. And the main offices won't do anything at all. Save yourself some money and do not rent. And y'all can stop deleting the bad reviews. People need to know that they're what they're getting into."
Wow.
So it was really racist, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
landlord is a Mexican. Like, I don't think you get
Right.
much more racist than that. But is the last name Garza like a Hispanic last name?
I would say so.
Right. It sounds like I don't want to like assume, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming.
I know.
Like, how is your last name Garza and you're like mad that the landlord doesn't understand English? Like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
So that was a fun review I found. The rest of the reviews were lovely. And not really. They were mostly saying how there's bugs everywhere. But
That sounds disgusting.
yeah, it's a pretty cheap apartment. I think the deposit's $300. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
But it's in a pretty normal area. Like, it doesn't
Hmm.
look that bad in the area. There's like a cool little park across the street. There are bars on the windows though, so
Oh,
take that how
okay.
you will. So let's get back to the story now that you got the context of the area. So the manager of these apartments was in the alley and she notices a terrible smell. She investigates the smell and it leads to a 1978 Ford LTD parked near the alley. The manager calls the police because she's like, "That's a smell that I wouldn't expect to come from a car." So they show up and they're like, "Yep, that's a smell. Mm-hmm. That's a smell. I smell that. You are validated. You're not crazy, babe. It stinks." Um, so
So,
the police pop the trunk, and you'll never guess what they found.
what did they find, Joe?
A dead body.
Oh, I
This is
was
a
never expecting that.
this is a true crime podcast.
Oh, oh,
You know, they found a dead body in the car. That's what the smelly. What if I was like,
ow.
they open the trunk and it's like a pound of cheese, like just melting in the hot Texas sun?
I would really not be expecting that.
They open the trunk and it's a fish. Like, yeah. So obviously, they find the body of a white woman. She was wrapped up in a stained white bed sheet. The reports I saw said she was like wrapped up like a burrito, implying that it wasn't like wrapped by herself.
Hmm.
Like like if you're gonna burrito wrap yourself in a blanket, you can't really do it in a trunk.
I mean, I've never really thought to do that anyways,
I know, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like you like
but
lay in a blanket, you twist all up and you get all like cocooned in there.
sure.
So, you can't really do that in a trunk, or you can't really do that and
No,
then get into a trunk. So, it's fishy, right? Like, would you say this is
just a little bit. It's pretty sus.
a little sus, right?
Yeah.
Something is going on. So unfortunately, as the smell alluded to, she was very decomposed to the point where they're going to have to use dental records to identify this woman.
Wow.
Because of the level of decomposition, they were not able to find any wounds or marks to indicate a cause of death. But somehow they were able to determine that she was not sexually assaulted. I don't understand how you can have both those things. Like, how how can you not be able to tell the cause of death, but also be assured that she wasn't assaulted
I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me.
at all, right? Um,
Correct.
but there were
But
no drugs, and I saw the toxicology report,
hmm.
and there were no drugs in her system, but there was a little alcohol, and that doesn't matter. Like, whatever, you're not going to die from being 0.08, like.
Right.
Her alcohol level was 0.08 or 0.07. But like, I don't know if the toxicology report was reading that it was not that high, or I don't know, but there might have been a little alcohol in her system, but not enough to be like worrisome in any way. Um, she would be identified as Catherine Mowry, and police would later try to say that this was a suicide.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
why is that?
So here's like it doesn't make sense to you. You're like, oh, so life is bad. I want to end my life. So
I just don't think that would be the way I would go.
What do you mean? You wrap yourself in a blanket, naked.
Sounds pretty complicated.
You're naked. You get naked. You wrap yourself in a blanket on the other side of town from your apartments, right? You wrap yourself in a blanket. The blanket's stained. It's kind of a shitty blanket, and then you crawl in the trunk, and then you die. You somehow close the trunk too. Yeah, that's a suicide, right? Like 100%, right?
Obviously.
What else would it be?
Sounds like I could easily do that if that's what I wanted to do.
Right, like, I mean, like, well, how it's not a fucking suicide, okay? It's not. Like, it's not. You don't do that. Like, who? People end their lives in some crazy ways, right? Like, you know, get help if you need help. Obviously, I should say that. Like, depression's hard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I struggle. I want to die, but that this is not a realistic like outcome. Like,
right.
to stumble upon that crime scene and to determine that is just like, I can't tell if it's lazy or just like complete ignorant. Like,
I think it's ignorance.
Like I can't think of the right word. Like malpractice. You know, it's like,
yeah,
so fucking stupid. But later they would say it's not a suicide, but an unexplained death.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about Catherine Mowry. She was born February 5th, 1961. Fucking Aquarius.
Oh.
Fucking Aquarius, dude.
I love Aquariuses.
I was like looking up what their sign is and just being like, wow, this explains so much. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
You're so funny.
It explains so much.
Maybe it does. Aaron's an Aquarius.
Oh no. Oh, yeah. Oh no. Like I know any fucking thing about it.
I know.
Oh.
I'm glad you're excited though.
Yeah, I'm pumped the fuck up about this Aquarius shit right now. So her parents were named James and Catherine Mowry. They grew up in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas to be exact, with 5 siblings: Jim, Michael, Mark, Joanne, and Deborah, in that order, I believe. 3 boys born at first, and then 3 girls. So her mom was really young when she married her father, so this would end up in a pretty rough divorce. Her mom later married a man named Robert Bob Mowry. He'll be known as Bob for the rest of the story.
Okay.
But what's weird here, did you notice that I said the same last name twice?
Actually, I didn't.
Yeah, so Robert Mowry and James Mowry, right?
Okay.
One of them is spelled without an E. But one of them is spelled Mowrey. And the other one's spelled Mowry, I think.
Okay.
So I don't fucking know.
Okay.
They're not related. It's just like a weird coincidence that they had the same last name with a little bit different spelling.
Yeah.
So anyway, things are pretty good for them. Bob raised the children as their own, even though he already had 3 children. So there's like 9 kids hopping around here. So like that sucks. But Joanne, Deborah, and Catherine were all about a year apart, and they were basically best friends growing up. They, I think they were. I'm pretty sure they were 1 year apart. I think when they were describing it, they said it was like a step ladder of like their ages.
Okay.
One day in 1966, they were playing in the front yard. I don't know if they were 3, 2, and 1 years old or 5, 4, and 3 years old. It was one of the two. I couldn't really figure it out. But if I did some math, I could probably figure it out. Actually, shit. So they were 5, 4, and 3 years old.
Okay.
Look at me just doing math on the fly.
Nice. Good job, Joe.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So they were in the front yard, and James Mowry, their biological father, kidnapped them from the front yard.
Oh.
And let me straight up say, like, I used a few different sources because this is not a very publicized case. And my main source was Stories of the Unsolved. It's a pretty I like using it when I like that site a lot when I'm like really struggling to find a good case. But that information that they were kidnapped was not on that. I had to find that in other means. Like I feel like that's a big part of the story, and a lot of the places that I saw covering this didn't have this kidnapping like listed. But they were missing for about a year, and their mother looked everywhere. And eventually they were able to make their way home. I think they were dropped off. I don't exactly know, but they were bruised and traumatized. They couldn't really remember what happened. They're 5, 4, and 3 years old.
Crazy.
Now 6, 5, and 4. And they couldn't remember shit because it sounds like it was an extremely traumatic life. This guy didn't seem like a good dude. I don't like if it's weird like saying that, but I mean he's kidnapped his kids. I just don't have proof that he's a piece of shit. But
right.
It was said that
he
were
kidnapped his kids.
Kidnapped his fucking kids, yeah. And took them for a year. Like that's fucking crazy. Anyway, they would grow up after that, and there's a lot to deal with when it comes to that. Like trauma wise, like that's a fucking lot. And we don't know what happened. There could have been physical assault. There could have been, who fucking knows what.
Right.
So yeah, Catherine would eventually get licensed in real estate, but it wasn't her vibe, so she didn't pursue it. At one point, she worked at a country club, and some of the members called her Katrina, and she ended up liking that more than her actual name, Catherine. So she started going by that, either Katrina or Kat, never Catherine.
Okay.
So Katrina was big into fashion, as far as I could tell. It seemed like she wanted to pursue like a career in fashion. I kind of had to like read between the lines for that because it wasn't really said, but that was kind of implied.
Yeah.
It said she was into the show Dallas.
I don't know what that is.
It was a show called Dallas back in the 80s about I think a family that owned like oil or some shit, like a rich family.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I read.
All right.
And her sister Joanne had already lived in Dallas, Texas. And they had visited down there a few times, while they were growing up. So at 18, she decided to move out of her house and go to Texas. In one area, or one article, area. In one article I read, it said she was moving there to go to school. So yeah, now we're in Dallas, baby.
All right.
So she's, she moved out when she was 18, but I don't think she went right to Texas. I think she went somewhere else. But a lot of the story is like super unclear. But anyway, it's like by the time she was like 22, 23, 24, she was in Dallas.
Okay.
And she got a little bit into drugs, as you do. They don't say what drugs. So with this being a story in the 80s, there's a chance the drugs she was into was fucking weed. Like
yeah.
Stories. It's hard to tell with stories like this because like she's into drugs. Like back then, cocaine and weed were on the same level. Like maybe they weren't, but like there were plenty of people that thought that more than today. So she got a little bit into the drug scene. No hate there. We've all done our fair share of drugs. I got no hate. Have I? Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh, okay.
I've like we've all dabbled in like various drugs in our 20s, right? Whether it's weed, whether it's cocaine, whether it's pills. Like everybody's Yeah, no, everybody I know, all
I
my
know.
delinquent
I
friends,
know.
we have partook in the drugs in some form,
In some fashion.
in some fashion. We're all a little fucked up on drugs.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, like I said, this was in the '80s. So who knows if it's weed? Who knows what it is?
Mhm.
So Katrina had planned on going back home to visit her sister. She packed her bags and placed them in front of the door near her apartment. She's gonna head out there. So the day she was planning on leaving, she called Deborah and they had an argument on the phone about something. Nobody remembers what it was about. It was just an argument. Siblings fucking argue. That's just how it goes. No big deal. But during the argument, one of them hung up on each other. And yeah, it was a normal ass argument.
Mhm.
um, Deborah was expecting her to show up in Kansas. They're sisters. They're gonna, talk about it, figure it out when she gets there, whatever.
Right.
She never shows up. Deborah just assumes that she was upset and canceled her trip for whatever reason they argued. Um, she would be found on the other side of town from her apartment a few days later. Deborah said it was 1 to 2 weeks from their phone call that she
Wow.
learned about her death. So I don't know what that like within like I don't know how long after she died she was identified. So odds are something happened like the day she was going to leave or whatever.
Right.
Um Shit, sorry, I lost my spot
It's okay.
completely. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. So yeah, she was on the other side of town from her apartment. Um, a few days later, or after all the autopsies and shit were done, she was released to her family in Lawrence, Kansas, where she was buried. So news coverage about this case was very sparse in Dallas. From what I had heard on a couple of the podcasts listened to and some of the
Mhm.
stories, like Dallas seemed to be in some sort of a drug war, right?
Hmm.
War on drugs, baby. It's Texas. We got our freedoms. We got to take down the goddamn drugs. Um,
Obviously.
so originally, her death before the toxicology report came back, they had they believe they had an indication to believe she had died of a cocaine overdose. Right? They
Mhm.
said she had cocaine in her system. She had no drugs in her system. But what's absolutely so fucked up about this? They told the parents that they told the family there was drugs in her system. We think that's how she died.
Mhm.
But in around 2021, a family member was like, "Hey, we want the toxicology report. Like, give it to us." Right? Um, 2021, they get that. They get the toxicology report. That fucking what's that? Like 35 years later. Um,
Just a little ways after it
what the
happened.
fuck? And so the whole time, like their
What
grandparents.
were they doing? Why did
Yeah,
it take so long?
we'll get into that. Uh, so her grandparents or parents died believing that she died of a cocaine overdose. They all had their suspicions or whatever, but they went to the grave with that belief.
Aw,
um,
that's sad.
it's so fucking sad. But in her apartment, a search was conducted. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I didn't write this down, but when I was listening to it, it became a big rift in their family. Like it would not be brought up. Like it would just be it was silenced completely. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to get into it.
Wow.
Yeah, really sad. Um, yeah, her apartment was searched and they didn't find anything weird. There was a bag packed near the front door, like she was gonna leave, but nothing was
Mhm.
missing. But here's where shit gets weird. They found her glasses and her contacts on her nightstand. Okay, she is legally fucking blind without her glasses or her contacts. So there's no
Hmm.
way she could drive her car without glasses or contacts.
Right.
She's on the other side of town in this car. How the fuck she get there? So obviously, they look into the boyfriend, right? He has an
Mhm.
alibi. But the vehicle that she was found in belonged to him. But it wasn't out of the ordinary. When she would visit her parents or she'd go back up to Kansas, she would take his car, and it wasn't abnormal. He didn't even know his car was missing. He thought she left Texas with it. He had an alibi, so he's cleared. Deborah, her sister, would later say that the person that saw her sister last was a man referred to as Pee-wee.
Pee-wee?
Pee-wee, a friend of hers. Some believed Pee-wee had a crush on Katrina.
Oh.
Some of the sources said that she sold drugs to Pee-wee. Deborah always thought that he had something to do with it, but police were never able to find out. They were never able to find out who Pee-wee was. Who is this Pee-wee?
Pee-wee?
Yeah. Peewee.
I know, but it's just funny.
Wait, what the fuck? Like, how do you not find that out?
I don't know.
How many fucking people? How many fucking people are nicknamed Pee-wee? I almost said Kiwi. How many people are nicknamed Pee-wee? Like, is there just like this like
friends nicknamed Pee-wee?
Exactly. Like, do you?
No,
I've never met a fucking single Pee-wee in my life. I would never talk to him again if I met a Pee-wee in my life. Like, so like in Texas, is there just like, God damn it, Pee-wee? That's a fucking nickname that we cannot find. There's so many goddamn Pee-wees around here that what are we gonna do? How are we gonna find one Pee-wee in this sea of Pee-wees? So obviously the fucking cops are stupid as fuck and they didn't do shit about this, right? This was a crime that they believed to be drug related. So they fucking looked at this case and they said, I don't give a fuck because she was in the drug scene. This is a common thing with police, especially like back then, or even probably now to this fucking day. Like if a victim falls under a what's the right word? Like a dangerous, if they have a dangerous profession or a dangerous lifestyle, they don't give a fuck. Yeah. They're like, oh well, you know what? They probably die. They probably deserve to die. Fuck them.
Right. Which is
they were
getting into.
Exactly. That's the thought, and I feel like that's still the thought to this day, and it pisses me off to no end. Like,
I know,
if you're a drug dealer, you're a sex worker, if you're anything that they deem as lower than them, and it does like the murder isn't as bad to them as if like some mayor's son was murdered or something. Like,
right.
It's fucked up. It's absolutely fucked up, and shit like that like drives me absolutely insane. So she might have sold drugs to Pee-wee. Who knows? They didn't look for the guy. They may say they looked for him, but they didn't fucking look for Pee-wee because they would be able to find fucking Pee-wee. I'm sure if somebody told me that there was a Pee-wee somewhere in the Quad Cities, I could find him in 2 days. I'd be like, I'd ask fucking 10 people.
Quad Cities.
I'd ask 10 people and they'd be like, hey, you know Pee-wee? And they'd be like, yeah, Pee-wee, the only Pee-wee I fucking know. Yeah, like I'll show you where he is. Like, who chooses that nickname? Who embraces that fucking nickname? Who embraces Pee-wee? Sorry, I'm losing my fucking cool.
You kind of look like a Pee-wee.
Yeah, I think I might maybe I'll start going by Pee-wee. Yeah. Pee-wee Gibbs. Yeah, fuck yeah. Let's rock with that shit. God, it pisses me off, man. So yeah, they didn't try very hard. Although they told the family they were trying hard. They told the family that this was something they were working on. They were looking into. They were keeping in contact.
Hardest, right?
They're trying their absolute fucking hardest. Fuck the police. So Katrina Marshall is her niece. Here's a quote from her that she would later say. I never consider any theory off the table completely. However, it is possible that it was somehow a situation where someone did panic and needed to hide her body. I'm also equally considerate to the fact that it was homicide. I say that because of how she was found, naked, wrapped up like a burrito in a bedsheet, along with the fact that she was found across town from where she lived and couldn't have driven herself there because legally she was blind without glasses or contacts, and both were still on her nightstand next to her bed across town. Regardless, law enforcement failed to investigate, failed to bring justice or bring closure to my family, and sadly, not only did they possibly let her killer escape, but they also sentenced her sisters to a life of misery. She has a petition trying to get this case reinvestigated that I will link to in the comments, or not in the comments, in the description of this episode. So if you want to sign the petition, I signed it earlier today. They have like 700 signatures or something. So, if you're listening to this, go like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it's gonna do if it's reinvestigated, but like, do something. Like, what fuck?
Something's better than nothing.
Another theory that I heard discussed on one of the podcasts, I believe it was one of the podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
was around the year that this happened, there were a ton of homicides in Texas, in Dallas, the Dallas
Mm-hmm.
area, and statistics become a really important thing when it comes to sheriff elections and political elections altogether. Like the more murders there are listed, the worse it is for the people in charge. So you know were they fudging the numbers a little bit? Maybe like they were like, oh, this wasn't a
Hmm.
homicide, it was a weird death, who cares, she was a druggie, like fuck it, like
I don't want to think about it that way.
I don't either, but I could fucking see those shitbags
Yeah,
doing it. um I'm being really like anti-cop right now.
that's fine.
Yeah. And
I
like,
just don't want to think about it because
it's
makes me
sad, right?
wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, who knows what other cases were swept under the rug to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, like, have your opinion on police or whatever, but like, yeah, it doesn't take like a fucking a genius to figure out that something's wrong here.
Right.
But we're not at the end of the story yet. Uh, the more I research this story as a one-off murder, the more I realize that this is more the story of like awful tragedy coming to a family. Um, these three sisters, the three musketeer sisters, three best friend sisters. This is a story more about the tragedy of their lives. They started out being. I'll revisit this in a bit, but so Joanne was one of the sisters. She was basically the leader of the three. Her sister later described her as an adventurer. They said she was really smart. She was always 10 steps ahead of the people around her. So April 6th, 1993. This is like 8 years later. Joanne was murdered while on a date in a hotel room in Dallas, Texas. Her sister would describe it as a date rape kind of situation. The room was listed in this man's name, which I could never find.
Hmm.
He beat her with a beer bottle, and then the bottle
Wow.
broke, and he slit her throat with the bottle.
What the fuck?
An investigator said it was some of the worst crime scene photos that they had ever seen from a crime scene. This man was arrested and faced consequences, but this got me thinking about like the amount of cases like this. Like they said that was some of the worst photos I've ever seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's zero information on this murder available online.
Really?
Zero. It's 93. I find plenty of murders around that time period that
Mm-hmm.
are listed. This one is nowhere. Absolutely. I couldn't find a newspaper article. All I found was a mention to it in these podcasts, and then Katrina Marshall talking on a podcast describing what happened. And that's all I got. All of my information from that. There's no news.
Wow.
There's nothing I was able to find. And I dug. I tried seeing if she had a different last name. I looked and looked and looked. But like, so how many stories like that of violence against women that like
We don't know about.
yeah, what the fuck? Like,
There's probably so many.
there's if there's one, this is a proven one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's hundreds. Like, there's thousands. Like, it's insane. Like, how many small town cases have just gone untold, unspoken?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
More than I'd like to think about.
right, and you like
Yeah.
know that there's more than that too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a question. So yeah, this guy who's unnamed, which I'm fine with him being unnamed. I think, I don't know if I am, like, because like he doesn't deserve any sort of recognition for his crime, but like I feel
No.
like he should face the ridicule of some sort. Like his family
Mm-hmm.
should face some sort of like, hey, your
Right.
fucking uncle's whatever. Terrible fucking situation that
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really bad. So on the episode, the podcast I listened to today actually to try to get more information. It's called Crime Scene and Cupcakes. That was a
Oh,
podcast
wow.
where she was like, "I'm a dog mom, a baker, and yeah,
Oh,
and a
man.
podcaster." um, the information on that podcast was good. I think you know her quality could probably improve, but like the information itself, I
Mhm.
thought was really good. Um, I like that intro tagline. That's why I stole it. I think that's incredible.
Mhm.
But this lady that does this was working with Katrina Marshall herself to put her story out there. So if you're
Mhm.
interested in more of this story, I think the next episode they're doing is going to be on Joanne, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but um this episode that I was referring to was released 2 months ago. They said it was going to be out by now, but like, you know how shit goes.
Yeah.
Um so if you are interested in this case, like go check out Crime Scene and Cupcakes. You know, if you want to hear more about it.
Mhm.
If I'll check it out, and if crazy stuff comes out on it that like I don't have like any information about it, I'll do an update. But yeah, shout out to them. Like, I'm doing a podcast is a lot of work, and talking to actual victims' families is a lot of work. I've done that before, and it's I don't know.
Yeah.
It becomes really real when you talk to somebody who felt grief from a case that you're kind of describing for like entertainment. You know, like
Right.
it is entertainment, but it's also like awareness. That's the way I kind of
Mhm.
like to look at it. Like, I feel like I'm spreading awareness on some of these
Right.
issues, but maybe I'm just a fucking psychopath. I don't know.
No.
So, Deborah, I believe she's the middle sister, but don't quote me on that. Deborah was one of the sisters. She had an extremely tragic life. Um, she watched two of her sisters get murdered, her two best friends, and had to live these years without them. She had a daughter, which I'm sure helped her find purpose. You know,
Mhm.
the Katrina Marshall, we've been talking about. Um, I'm sure that helped a little bit, but this is it's a fucked way to live, and I deeply feel for her. Deborah Karen Marshall graduated in 1981 and earned an associate's degree in restaurant and hotel management. And she would later go to Montana State for PR, public relations, and communications. She was a journalist and a writer for a newspaper while in college. Her mental health later deteriorated from all of this, and it was so bad that she was on disability for it.
Wow.
Um, November 11th, 2020, in Bullhead City, Arizona, Deborah took her life at 57, living 35 years without knowing what happened to her sister. And Jesus Christ. And having to live with the senseless death of her other sister. Um, and it was said to happen after she found out that the police put in zero effort. They led her on basically for years, saying that they're working on it, but they hadn't done anything. Um,
Wow.
like, in my dates might be off. I don't know if she ever found out about the toxicology reports. I think she did, but my dates might be weird. I don't know. This is a really hard story to research, so bear with me a little
Mhm.
bit on that. Um, yeah, I don't know. That it just makes me really sad. Like that's a really fucking hard life to live
Mhm.
with your literally your best friends and your siblings, people you grew up with, you were kidnapped
Right.
with, like dying around you like, your whole life,
Right.
and then trying to live and be a normal member of society like while that's
I
happening.
couldn't. It'd be hard.
It's fucking but I think this case shows the consequences of the state of our society right now, basically. Two of her
Mhm.
sisters were murdered by men. Um, I don't care that Katrina was like deemed not a homicide or whatever, or hasn't been proven to be a homicide yet. And even if for some reason it was an overdose covered up, which it wasn't because toxicology reports, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, that still speaks to how drug use and addiction is viewed in our society as well. Like, you know, it wasn't her getting help. It was like she died and the police was like, "Oh, well, oh well, she wasn't
know.
murdered. And if it was a homicide, then it's like, oh well, she was murdered. Like, and then
I know.
Joanne, her sister, dying because of a man that wanted power. Um, so there's this case, and then also Deborah committing suicide after all this because our mental health system is fucked up. So
Mm-hmm.
we have like three like glaring problems with what's going on in the US and probably everywhere, but you know, specifically the US because that's where I live. You know, men are fucked. The view of addiction is fucked. The view of mental health is fucked. It's
Mm-hmm.
improving all the time, but like I still see terrible, terrible fucking things within the field of all of those things. And I think this case is like a really like glaring view of it. Like who knows? Yeah, it's like I don't know. None of them did really anything wrong as far as we know of. It's not
Right.
like they I don't know. Was she using drugs as a form of escapism? I don't know. Like that's not like
I feel like
that's
that's not important.
it's not important exactly. Like
It's
can it be
just
a reason?
stupid.
Maybe it's really
I
sad.
don't know. I mean,
It's
so
so
what if she was using drugs?
yeah. It doesn't matter.
Her death should still be investigated.
Right.
So does that mean since I smoke weed and I die, they're just gonna be
Right.
like, oh, it
Well,
was
yeah,
just
you
the
smoke.
weed?
Oh,
Like,
she's a Satanist. She was dabbling in the
right.
occult.
Yep.
Like
It was the devil's lettuce.
it was the devil's lettuce.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why this case like jumped out to me. And the more I read it, the less it was about just the murder of I don't know Katrina Mowry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the more it's just about like how fucked up everything is, and like how fucked up it's been. And I want to say things are better now, but like I don't know. I think we're improving as a society, but with recent
Some days
events,
it feels like if we're not.
yeah, recent events, women are taking the L right now because of shit we don't need to get into, but like I don't know,
Yeah.
we're losing rights, we're losing I don't know.
We'll see what
um,
happens.
these three women never stood a chance with all these. They never stood a chance. They were kidnapped from a very young age. They already
Mm-hmm.
had trauma from that, and
Right.
then that led up to what happened. And it's like one of the like the saddest stories I feel like I've read, just because it's like I feel like everybody can relate with at least one of these three.
Yep.
Like I can relate in the depression. Like or making bad decisions when you're in your 20s, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can relate being a woman and having to be worried about going on a
Men.
fucking date. Yeah, with them.
Yep.
Yeah, like
Yep.
I don't know. I think that this case was just powerful in those regards.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I don't know, my brain hurts. I don't feel good.
I know. I feel like I need a snack. I need to go smoke some more because I don't want to be sad.
Yeah. Um yeah, I found this case and just started digging into it, and yeah, I don't know. I literally like chose this case, and I was like, yeah, this is like an interesting murder. Like it was deemed not a murder, but it was a fucking murder. Like
Yeah.
the unexplained, like the article I saw was the unexplained death of Katrina Mowry, and it's like they didn't do a goddamn thing to try to solve
Uh-uh.
that case.
I know.
Um, when you live a dangerous lifestyle, it doesn't fucking matter to cops.
Mm-mm.
You're subhuman to them. And yeah, that's society. We live in a society.
We
Yeah,
sure do.
that's all I got on this case.
That was the sadness for the day.
Isn't that rough?
Yeah.
Like I listened to the podcast. Oh, and I want to give another shout out to so there was crime scene and cupcakes. Shout out to that podcast. They're the one deep diving the case a bit. They've done a couple other things. I'm not super well versed in, but I thought that was at least worth bringing up in case you want to keep up with this case, because it is being discussed. Go sign the petition that I'm going to post in the description. It's a change.org thing. It takes 2 seconds. I don't know if the petitions ever actually lead to anything, but
I don't
I don't
know.
know. We should do our part to do something, I guess. Like, I
Yeah.
want to feel like I'm doing something.
So at
If
least
you
we
want to
can
feel
do,
like
I
you're doing something
guess.
too, like, go ahead and
Right?
sign that. And then I also wanted to shout out Murderous Roots. They did a they did a podcast on this case recently, and they went through the family tree of this entire family, and there was some really good information on there. And Katrina Marshall was on that podcast talking, like, filling in the gaps and details, and it was really interesting.
Hmm.
But honestly, the first like 10 minutes of it was the most impactful, because she was reading a letter about her mom, who had taken her life at this point. And like, while she during the letter, like, her mom writes, like, straight up, like, this is probably the first time I've ever talked about this. And
Wow.
like, that's that's sad in its own way. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's also this, like, like, even I feel like as a mother, you have to put this strong view of yourself into the world too. Like, uh so there's I don't know where I'm going with that, but there's like,
You're fine.
I think there's like a reason she felt like she couldn't talk about it. And I think that's my issue, is she
Probably
felt
just didn't seem like she was weak. Because,
yeah. Yeah. You don't want to show any
depression
weakness.
makes you feel like you're weak.
Yes.
Like a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I feel every
That I
fucking
am.
day of
Yep,
my
me
life.
too.
So yeah, I'm sorry I ruined your day.
It's fine, I guess.
This has been episode 7 of So-Called Satanism. It wasn't a satanic case again, but I told you it
Maybe
wasn't always
next
going to
week
be
will
that.
be.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit.
We'll see.
I'll find a way to make every case satanic. I'm going to name this something stupid, like, I
Like
don't know.
what?
I don't know, something devil related.
Okay, yeah.
The devil, I don't know. What she was found in the trunk, was it Satan's bidding? Something like that.
No.
That's pretty good. She was found in the trunk. Was it man or Satan? No.
It's
We'll
not
workshop
passing
that
the
a bit.
vibe check today.
We'll work on that a bit. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
We'll be back.
Maybe. Oh, 5 stars. Raise 5 stars. Bye.
Bye.
What's happening to our soul? What's happening to your soul? And are there influences trying to steal your soul?